going before we lose any more.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Hopefully you can hear me okay. My name is Mimi. I am the photographer account manager here at Focal. I'll be doing the workshop for you today. So basically, we have a quick presentation. So I'm going to do a presentation for you, and then at the end we'll have a Q&A where I will be taking your questions and answering them. So you can feel free to write the questions whenever. There should be a little bubble box for your Q&A section, and then I will answer them at the end. So welcome, everyone. So today we are going to be talking about Flash. It's a very common theme that we see running across, especially for trial jobs, and basically how to use the Flash correctly. So the requirements are, first and foremost, keeping it simple, always use Flash for internal photos, so you don't need Flash for external photos. Flash is, however, required for all of the internal photos. So Flash is a secondary source of light, so your main source of light should always be the natural light. So always make sure that you have blinds and curtains open so that you're getting as much natural light as possible. And then you're also going to be having all of the lights on in the property, so all the lamps, the ceiling lights, which will also help with your light. And then your Flash, so that should be your primary source of light, is the existing light that you have in the property. And then the secondary source of light is the Flash. So a lot of people view the Flash as the main source of light, but it's not. The purpose of the Flash is to make the images spark and just look much more professional, and it is a diffuser. So what that means is, rather than filling it, lighting up the entire room, which can look really awkward, it's actually just lighting up the shadows and sort of filling in all the gaps that the natural light is not providing you. And then I have here the third point, which is always adjust the Flash based on the natural light in the room. So what that means is, if it's a sunnier day, your ISO, I don't know if you've been to any of my other workshops before, but we did speak about settings in ISO. So the ISO should always be at 200 to 400. And especially on sunnier days, you're going to want to boost your Flash. The reason for that is because sun is quite harsh, so when it's coming in through the windows, you're going to get really harsh light, and then you're going to need to compensate for those shadows by boosting the Flash. So I hope that's all made sense so far, but again, please write any questions you have in the chat box, and I will get to them at the end. So three simple things to remember for your requirements. The Flash should always be facing directly behind you at a 45-degree angle, or it can be facing up towards the ceiling. One of the most common mistakes that we have and that we see is people pointing the Flash forwards. So generally speaking, pointing the Flash forwards will get you'll get a really, really harsh light, and then you're also going to, rather than fill in the shadows, which is what you're trying to do, you're actually going to create more shadows, and they're going to be harsher. So yeah, just to recap, Flash pointing behind you at 45 degrees or up towards the ceiling. So here we have an image. I don't know if you can tell, but this is an image without Flash. So you can see it's a bit dark, there are some shadows, it's a bit artsy, but yeah, so that's an image without Flash. This is an image with the flash facing forward. So the flash is quite harsh. It's literally filling up the whole room. And yeah, it's just quite harsh. And this is the correct use of flash. So this is what we want basically, which is the flash here is pointing slightly back, so between the ceiling and between 45 degrees. And yeah, it's filling up the room nicely and just providing a bit of fill or diffuser, as we like to say. So here is the two images together. The first one on the left is the flash facing forward, which is our most common mistake, and actually a very, very common complaint from our clients. They will say that the light is too harsh, and they'll actually often say that it looks cheap. So what that means is, because it's such a harsh flash, it can actually cheapen the image. You know, and especially when you're using a full frame camera or even crop frame and an expensive lens, the last thing we want to do is really cheapen the image. So on the right is the correct flash use. So you can see the power is the same, it's just pointing behind rather than forward. So again, just to recap, the flash should always be at a 45-degree angle behind you. In situations where that's not doing a good enough job in terms of filling out the shadows, then you can point it up towards the ceiling, but never facing forward. Okay, and now we will open up for a Q&A. So hopefully I'll just turn my camera on so you can see me. Sorry, just trying to get this to work here. Sorry, I don't know if you can see me, but it's not allowing me to to show you my camera at the moment. Right, let's get into the questions here. Does anybody have any questions at all in terms of flash and their flash use? Okay, I don't see any questions. So does anybody have any other questions or anything that they're struggling with or that they wanted to speak about? Oh, here's a question. This is a really good one. Is that a rule that all lights should always be on, ceiling and other lamps? Yes, that is a rule. Generally speaking, it will really help with the making the property spark and just look nice and professional. And it will also help with filling in the gaps in terms of light, because we only use one source of light, which is the flash. Well, technically, I suppose we're also using the natural light from the window, but in terms of external light, we're only using our flash. So all the lights in the property, any that you can turn on, are always helpful, and it just looks nicer. Right, next question. I can control the power level on my flash. Should I start with it on full, then bring it down if it's too harsh? Yes, 100%. So I would always recommend being very manual with your flash. Oftentimes, if you have it on auto to go with the settings in your camera, you're not always going to get the result that you want. But yeah, the general rule would be to turn it up or down. You could also start the other way. So you could start with it very low, see what it looks like, and then bring it higher. But again, just keep in mind that the flash should be filling in sort of the shadows and not being a main source of light. Cool. Does anybody else have any questions? Don't be shy. Oh, here we go. Should you set white balance for natural light, the room lighting, or the flash? Good question. You should set the white balance for the room. So especially when you have rooms that are, for example, completely yellow or completely blue, you need to set the white balance. Otherwise, your image will be really off with its color. So yeah, always set it for the room. Okay, next question. What is the best way to use the flash when shooting the small room and have to position the camera on the tripod at the door frame? In this case, the light from the flash doesn't go into the room unless you point it forward. It would be good to know more detail on that. So what kind of room it was and also what natural light you're getting from the room. I know a lot of bathrooms don't have windows. So in that case, if you are really reliant on your flash, then perhaps this is another thing we'll talk about in another session, but does relate. Really moving forwards or backwards, or even an inch to the left or the right can really help with your flash use and your composition. So yeah, if you are pointing it at the door frame, you should still be pointing it. I think it would be better to point it up towards the ceiling rather than at a 45-degree angle. So yeah, I hope that helps. Do you recommend on-camera flash opposed to off-camera? Right, George, I don't know what you mean by this, but we should always be using a flash gun. So I probably should have said that at the very beginning, but it's an external flash that we use. So it's a flash gun, also known as a speed light, that needs to be attached to your camera. Should you set white balance for natural light? Oh, I've answered that already. How to assure equal light across bigger rooms, for example, reception looking into a dining room, or when photographing ensuite bathrooms? That is a really good question. So a lot of the times you will get really dark spots the further away it is. So again, this really comes down to composition, and if you position yourself in a way where you're either not catching that dark bit, but in really massive rooms, you aren't going to get an even lighting because the flash is not going to physically be able to light, a second room or an ensuite if you're photographing a really large room. So in terms of that, just really play around with your composition, move forward, move back, move to the left, move to the right, angle your cameras differently, just so that you are not getting the really dark area, basically. Okay, great. Any more questions? Again, it can be to do with flash or not. It can be to do with anything that you're struggling with, or just something that you wanted to know more of. Okay, cool. Yeah, of course, if you have any questions in the next few minutes, just let me know. I just wanted to say that if you do have any recruitment questions, please email Phil. I can write his email for you at the end or send it to you privately if you don't have it. But if you're wondering what stage you are with the trial job, please email Phil. And also, the sooner you get the trial jobs in, then the sooner we can set you live and get you some work. So yeah. Okay, any last questions before we leave? Did everything make sense with the flash pointing forwards or backwards? Oh, here's a good question. Would we expect to tidy up if the room isn't camera ready? No. So we do not require our photographers to do any home staging at all. Our agents and vendors get a very in-depth home staging guide, which they will receive prior to your appointment. So it is their responsibility to have the property camera ready for you to arrive. So there are certain things that you might want to keep in mind when you're there. So for example, if you are taking a photo and there's a large bin in the way, we don't advise you to touch anything. It's not only because of COVID, but especially because of the current times we're in. We definitely don't advise you to touch anything, but even before COVID, we did not advise any of our photographers to touch anything. Especially because you are 100% liable in case something breaks. So yeah, feel free to ask the vendors to move something if you feel that it should be moved, but it is the agents and vendors' responsibility. Cool. Any more questions? Right. Okay, guys. Well, if you think of anything, you should all have my email now from the invite to this workshop. And some of you know me by now, so hello. But if you do have any questions or if there's something that you have not thought of, please feel free to just email me. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. And then we also have Phil and his team who are happy to answer any of your questions as well. So yes, don't be shy. We are here to help and yeah, get you past training really. So right, okay. Cool, well, I think that's it. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Our next workshop is on Friday at 10 a.m. So I hope to see you there. Oh, and sorry, that one is on composition. And you should all have the invite for that as well. So I hope to see you on there. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Bye.